Honey, tomorrow you have a closing with the notary. You're selling your premarital 3-bedroom and buying a 1-bedroom apartment for my son and me. My mother-in-law presented it as a done deal. My daughter-in-law then calmly said, "Hi, my dears, put your work aside, take a breath, and get ready for a domestic drama with an unexpected twist. Let's go." Kylie watched her reflection in the panoramic window of her new apartment. The city lights twinkled outside the glass, blending with the silhouette of a woman who, just 3 years ago, couldn't imagine herself here, the owner of a luxurious 2-bedroom in the elite apartment complex, Sky Haven. "I earned this," she whispered, running her fingers across the cool glass. "Damn it, I earned this." At 31, an age when many of her peers were changing their third husband or desperately clinging to crumbling relationships, Kylie Davis was upgrading her apartment from a rented studio on the outskirts to her own downtown condo. The last boxes were unpacked, the last nails hammered, the last curtains hung. The apartment breathed newness and smelled of her favorite sandalwood incense. 3 years ago, her life had shattered like a porcelain cup dropped on a marble floor. A phone call from an unknown number, a male voice, apologizing for the inconvenience. "You're Roman Perry's wife, aren't you? You see, my girlfriend is expecting his child. I thought you should know." An evening soaked in whiskey and tears, a morning filled with icy rage, a divorce process that Roman tried to drag out, clinging to their shared apartment. "You won't be able to afford the mortgage alone. Kylie, let's stay friends. I'll help." Kylie's only response then were 3 words that made Roman's lawyer choke on his coffee: watch and learn. 3 years in the office until midnight. 3 years without vacations. 3 years when every spare minute was spent on professional development courses and training. She had transformed into a machine, fueled by a single desire to prove herself, to prove the ex-husband, to prove the world wrong. When, on the 3rd day after her divorce, she was fired downsizing, her boss explained. Avoiding eye contact, Kylie didn't break. A week later, she got a job as an assistant in the marketing department of TechStream, a company few had heard of back then. 6 months later, she became a junior manager. A year later, a team leader. The company grew, and Kylie grew with it. Now, standing by the window of her new apartment, she held the position of Deputy Director of Marketing, with an annual bonus exceeding her previous yearly salary. Her phone vibrated on the table. Andrew, his smiling photo on the screen, made Kylie's heart do a flip. "Hi." Her voice softened, as it always did when she spoke to him. "Are you on your way?" "Leaving the office now. I'll be there in 40 minutes, traffic permitting." "Perfect. I ordered Thai food from that restaurant you liked. You're amazing. Can't wait to see you." Kylie smiled, hanging up. Andrew Miller entered her life 7 months ago at a corporate party celebrating a new product launch. He was hired as an external IT security consultant, and that evening, they accidentally bumped into each other by the snack table. "Excuse me." He caught a champagne glass she almost knocked over. "Looks like we're on the same side." "What do you mean? Everyone else is over there." He gestured towards the dance floor, where the company executives were displaying questionable dance moves. "And we're here by the food. Clearly kindred spirits." She laughed then, and something in that simple conversation made her relax for the first time in a long while. Andrew wasn't aggressively flirting or trying to impress. They simply talked about work, about recent movies, about how the city had changed. By the end of the evening, he asked for her phone number, and Kylie surprised herself by giving it to him. Their relationship developed slowly but steadily. No drama, no games, no pressure. 3 months later, he confessed he was in love. 5 months later, he proposed during a walk in the autumn park. "I don't want a grand celebration," he said then. "I just want to be with you." She appreciated his simplicity and sincerity. After all the complexities with Roman, Andrew seemed like a breath of fresh air. She was 31, he was 34, and they both knew what they wanted from life. No drama, no manipulation, just 2 adults who decided to be together. The wedding was modest, They signed papers at the courthouse and held a dinner for close friends and relatives at a small restaurant. Andrew's mother, Helen, was reserved and polite at the dinner. "So glad Andrew found such a smart and independent young woman," she said, raising her glass to the newlyweds. At that moment, Kylie thought she was lucky with her mother-in-law. Helen looked like a woman who knew boundaries, tastefully dressed, with a neat haircut and a soft smile. "We'll definitely become friends," she promised, kissing Kylie's cheek. Andrew lived in a rented apartment not far from downtown, a small one-bedroom he'd been renting for 5 years. "Didn't see the point in buying," he explained. "I invested all my money in my development." Kylie also valued his practicality, free from fanaticism. The decision for him to move in with her came naturally. Why pay rent when she had a spacious apartment? Andrew agreed without hesitation, even with some relief. "Honestly, I never liked that studio," he admitted. "Too dark." The first week of living together passed in euphoria. They got used to each other's routines, learned to share space, found compromises. Andrew liked to wake up early and work to music. Kylie preferred sleeping in and silence. But they quickly found a solution. He worked with headphones in an improvised office set up in a corner of the living room. On the 8th day after the wedding, the phone rang. "Andrew, darling." Helen's voice was honeyed. "I miss you so much. Maybe I can drop by for tea today. I want to see how you've settled in." Andrew cast a questioning glance at Kylie. She nodded. "Why not? A mother-in-law has the right to see how her son lives." Helen arrived exactly at 3:00 as promised. At the door, she hugged her son and handed Kylie a box of chocolates. "Darling, I hope you like chocolate. I chose the very best." Kylie accepted the gift with a smile. "Thank you. Helen, please come in. I've just brewed some tea." Her mother-in-law took off her shoes, carefully placing them next to her son's, and walked into the living room. Her gaze slowly glided around the room, lingering on every detail, from the chandelier to the furniture arrangement. "How modern," she said after a pause. "Very much in tune with the times." Something in her tone made Kylie tense, but she dismissed the feeling, probably just imagined it. "Would you like me to show you around the apartment?" she offered. "Andrew's completely settled in here." "With pleasure," the mother-in-law brightened. "I want to see how my boy is doing in his new home." The tour began. Helen moved slowly, like a museum expert evaluating exhibits. In the bedroom, her gaze lingered on the wide bed. "Excellent mattress. I imagine," she asked. Andrew always complained about his back. "Yes, it's orthopedic," Kylie confirmed. "And how much does something like that cost?" The question sounded casual, but Kylie inwardly winced. She disliked discussing prices with someone she barely knew. In the bathroom, her mother-in-law ran her finger across the marble countertop. "Natural stone, a very expensive pleasure." "It was included in the price of the apartment," Kylie explained, feeling an unpleasant chill run down her spine. In the study, Helen stopped in front of Kylie's desk. "And what do you do?" "Dear Andrew mentioned it, but I confess I've forgotten." "I'm the deputy director of marketing at TechStream." "Oh, a solid position and a good salary, I suppose." Andrew, who had been following them, coughed. "Mom, that's not a very polite question." "Why not?" Helen asked, genuinely surprised. "I'm just interested. We're family now, aren't we?" "Darling Kylie." Kylie offered a strained smile. "Let's go back to the tea. I made apple pie." Over tea, her mother-in-law continued her investigation. "Darling, what kind of car do you have?" "A Volkswagen Tiguan," Kylie replied, sipping her tea. "A good brand, reliable, and last year's model? No less, almost new, and Andrew takes the subway. He's so economical." Helen patted her son's hand. "Always been thrifty." "Mom," Andrew winced. "I just don't see the point in a car in the city center. Traffic, parking." Of course," his mother nodded. "You've always been sensible, dear." By the end of the visit, Kylie had a headache. She couldn't pinpoint the exact problem. Her mother-in-law hadn't said anything overtly rude or unpleasant, but every question, every comment, seemed to contain a hidden reproach or an unspoken comparison. When the door closed behind Helen, Kylie exhaled with relief. "Your mom is intense," she said cautiously. Andrew smiled apologetically. "She's just worried about me. Always has been. I'm sorry if it made you uncomfortable." "It's fine," Kylie lied. "Just unusual." She didn't talk about her true feelings, how the questions about her salary bothered her, how unpleasant it was to feel like an object of study, how annoying the subtle contrast between thrifty Andrew and extravagant Kylie was. After all, it was their first meeting as relatives. Maybe everything would work out. But deep down, in that corner of her mind responsible for intuition and premonition, Kylie knew this was just the beginning, and autumn turned to winter, winter to spring. Kylie and Andrew celebrated their first wedding anniversary at a small restaurant overlooking the river. He gave her a silver bracelet with an engraving. She gave him a set of rare vinyl records he had long dreamed of. "To us," Andrew said, raising his glass. "To the happiest year of my life." Kylie smiled, clinking glasses with him. "To us." She was honest. The year had indeed been happy. Andrew turned out to be exactly the husband she had dreamed of, attentive, supportive, understanding. He wasn't bothered when she had to stay late at work, wasn't jealous of her success, didn't demand she behave like a normal wife. On the contrary, he genuinely rejoiced at her every promotion, every bonus. "My wife is a real fighter," he proudly told his friends. "If only you knew what she's been through." The only fly in the ointment was Helen. After that first visit, she seemed to have made an unspoken decision to become a permanent part of their lives. First, weekly visits for tea, then sudden appearances. "I was in the neighborhood and decided to drop by." Then long visits stretching late into the evening. "Helen, maybe I can call you a taxi," Kylie once asked at 1 a.m. when her mother-in-law showed no signs of wanting to leave. "It's late, and you have a long way to go." "Oh, darling, are you kicking me out?" Her mother-in-law clutched her chest with a look of wounded innocence. "I thought we were having such a nice chat." "Mom, Kylie is just worried." Andrew intervened. "Let me drive you." No, son. Don't trouble yourself. I'll call a taxi." She slowly took out her phone but didn't rush to dial. "I just didn't think I'd become a burden in my own family." When Helen finally left half an hour later, Kylie collapsed onto the sofa, feeling emotionally drained. "You understand she's manipulating you, don't you?" she asked her husband. Andrew sighed, sitting down beside her. "She doesn't mean any harm. She's just lonely after Dad passed. You're like a breath of fresh air for her now." Kylie bit her lip to keep from saying too much. Andrew's father had died a year before they met, and she understood that his mother might indeed be having a hard time. But empathy didn't negate the irritation of constant intrusions into their private space. What was even more troubling was that with each visit, Helen's comments became more poisonous. "Darling Kylie, haven't you thought about changing to a less demanding job?" she asked one day when Kylie was talking about a complex project. "Andrew needs a wife, not a business partner." "Mom," Andrew winced. "Kylie loves her job, and I support her in that." Of course. Her mother-in-law nodded. "It's just that in my day, women paid more attention to family than career. But times change. Who am I to judge, another time?" Noticing Kylie's new shoes, she dramatically clapped her hands. What luxury must be Andrew's monthly salary? And without waiting for an answer, she continued, "Andrew's father and I always saved. We never allowed ourselves such excesses." Kylie learned to let such comments go in one ear and out the other. She understood the mechanism her mother-in-law was trying to induce guilt, provoke an argument, show her son that his wife was a spendthrift and a careerist. But Andrew, thankfully, didn't fall for these manipulations, though he didn't stop them as harshly as Kylie would have liked. Just ignore it, he would say. She's like that with everyone. The situation escalated sharply when Helen began actively promoting the idea that Andrew needed to buy his own place. Son, you're a man, she would say, casting meaningful glances at Kylie. It's not right to live in someone else's apartment. A man should provide his own roof over his head. Mom, we live together. What difference does it make whose name is on the title? A big difference. Helen raised her voice. Today you're together, but tomorrow anything can happen, and then what? Back to renting rooms. Nothing will happen to us, Andrew said firmly, putting his arm around Kylie's shoulders. We love each other. Love is love, but documents are documents. Her mother-in-law cut in. I just want you to be protected. Kylie earns more now, and that's great, but is it fair that she has her own apartment and you have nothing? These conversations recurred with remarkable regularity. Kylie tried not to intervene directly, but inside, she was seething with indignation. She was proud of her apartment. It was a symbol of her independence, her strength, her ability to cope with life's difficulties on her own. And now, some woman who had known her for less than a year was trying to make her feel guilty for her own achievements. One evening, when Andrew was showering, Helen launched a direct attack. Kylie, darling, she said, lowering her voice. I wanted to talk to you frankly, woman to woman. I'm listening. Kylie tensed. You understand that Andrew feels uncomfortable living on your territory, don't you? Men are proud, they'll never admit it, but inside they suffer. Andrew doesn't seem like a suffering person, Kylie replied dryly. Oh, darling, he just doesn't show it for your sake. But a mother sees. Her mother-in-law lowered her voice to a dramatic whisper. You know what would truly strengthen your marriage if you transferred half of the apartment to him. That would be fair. Your family. After all. Kylie felt her face stiffen. Helen, I appreciate your concern, but issues of Andrew's and my property are our business alone. Of course, of course. Her mother-in-law quickly backed down. I'm just advising you, as a woman who has lived a long, happy life with her husband. Kylie remained silent, though inside, everything was boiling. When Andrew came out of the shower, she took him to the bedroom and closed the door. Your mother just suggested I transfer half the apartment to you, she said, trying to speak calmly. It's so tactless. I'm speechless. Andrew paled. Kylie, I swear, I didn't say anything to her. It was entirely her idea. I know, Kylie exhaled. But you have to talk to her. Explain that there are boundaries that can't be crossed. Of course. He hugged her. I'll talk to her. I promise. The conversation happened, but it didn't seem to have the desired effect. Helen simply changed tactics. Now she preferred to act through her son, avoiding direct confrontation with her daughter-in-law. Andrew, darling, I saw a great studio apartment in a new complex, she would say. Not expensive at all. Let me help you with the down payment. Mom, I already have a place to live, Andrew would reply tiredly. You have a place to visit, his mother countered. But a man needs his own nest. After such conversations, Andrew would become silent and thoughtful. Kylie noticed this and tried not to pressure him, giving him space to think. But inside, her concern grew. What if her mother-in-law managed to plant a seed of doubt in her husband's soul? What if he really started to feel inadequate because he lived in her apartment one evening, returning from work earlier than usual? Kylie found Andrew looking at real estate websites. He quickly closed the tab, but she managed to catch a glimpse. Looking for an apartment? She asked directly. Andrew looked flustered. Just checking what's on the market. Nothing serious. Because of your mother's conversations. He paused, then admitted. Partly. You know, sometimes I think, what if she's right? What if I really should have something of my own? Kylie sat down next to him, taking his hand. Andrew, I never considered this apartment solely mine. From the moment we got married, it's been ours. I'm not going to kick you out or anything like that. I know. He squeezed her fingers. But sometimes I feel, I don't know, like an unequal partner. You earn more. The apartment is yours. The car is yours. And that makes you feel bad? She asked softly. No. He shook his head. I'm proud of you. Really. I just wish I could contribute more. You do contribute, Kylie said with conviction. Money isn't the only measure of contribution in a relationship. You support me. You make me happy. That's much more important than square footage or a bank account. They talked late into the night. Kylie tried to understand his doubts, and Andrew tried to explain that he was proud of her successes but sometimes felt pressure from his mother. By morning, they seemed to have reached some understanding. Andrew promised to more firmly curb Helen's attempts to interfere in their financial affairs. But peace in the family didn't last long. A week after that conversation, something happened that Kylie later called the beginning of the end. Helen arrived unannounced, claiming she was just passing by. Kylie was at work. Andrew was finishing a project at home. They were in the kitchen when Kylie's phone, left on the table, rang. Maybe it's important. Her mother-in-law gestured to the vibrating phone. It's not my phone. Mom. Andrew frowned. I can't answer Kylie's calls. Oh, come on. Helen waved her hand. What secrets can there be between a husband and wife? The call stopped, but immediately started again. Andrew hesitated, looking at the screen. It's probably her dealer. Something for work. Her dealer? Her mother-in-law's voice grew suspicious. Kylie wanted to buy a new car, a more representative class for client meetings. Helen pursed her lips, but said nothing. When Andrew went to the bathroom, she didn't hesitate to pick up Kylie's phone and press the call button. What she heard surpassed her expectations. Kylie, good afternoon, a cheerful male voice said. Glad to inform you that your Mercedes-Benz S-Class has arrived at the dealership. We're ready to finalize the paperwork as soon as you make the remaining payment. When would be a good time for you to come by? Helen stammered something unintelligible and quickly hung up. When Andrew returned, she sat as if she had swallowed a lemon. Everything okay? He asked. More than okay, his mother-in-law hissed. Your wife is buying a Mercedes. A luxury car. Congratulations. Oh, yes. Andrew nodded. She needs a car for work. For work, Helen repeated. Of course. And the fact that your father drove an old Ford his whole life, and I still shake on the subway, is that normal? Mom, Andrew began warningly. No, you listen. Her mother-in-law raised her voice. Your wife is buying herself a car for hundreds of thousands, while your parents… She paused dramatically. Your parents barely make ends meet. Your father and I worked our whole lives, and what do we have? A rented apartment and a pension that barely covers our medicine. Mom, I help you every month, Andrew reminded her tiredly. Your $100, Helen laughed bitterly. That won't even fully cover the utilities, and your wife, meanwhile, is buying Mercedes. When Kylie returned home, the atmosphere was so tense you could cut it with a knife. Helen sat in the living room with a look of wounded dignity. Andrew nervously smoked on the balcony, a habit he had long given up. What happened? Kylie asked, taking off her coat. Helen slowly stood up. What happened, my dear, is that I finally understood who my son has gotten involved with a heartless egoist who only thinks about herself. Excuse me. Kylie froze, coat in hand. A Mercedes. You mean… Her mother-in-law twisted her lips into a semblance of a smile. Hundreds of thousands thrown away while close family lives in poverty. Helen, Kylie said slowly, feeling anger boiling inside. My car is my business. I earn that money myself. Of course you only think about yourself. Her mother-in-law raised her voice. And what about the fact that Andrew still has nothing of his own? Have you thought about that? The fact that his parents live in poverty doesn't concern you. Andrew entered from the balcony, his face pale. Mom, stop it. We already discussed this. No, Andrew, I won't stop, Helen screamed. I've been silent for too long. Your wife throws money around, lives in luxury, and you let her boss you around. No one is bossing anyone around, Andrew said firmly. Kylie has the right to spend her money as she sees fit. Her own, his mother-in-law mimicked. And where's your money? Son, where's your apartment? Where's your car? Everything is hers. You're nobody to her. A parasite. Enough! Kylie roared, losing patience. You're in my house, Helen, and I won't let you insult either me or your son. Your house, her mother-in-law hissed. Exactly always yours, never ours, remember. Andrew. She turned to her son. This woman will never be a true wife to you, because a true wife thinks of her family, not herself. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. On the threshold, she turned back. I always knew you made a mistake, son, but it's not too late to fix it. When the door slammed shut behind her mother-in-law, a ringing silence fell over the apartment. Andrew stood with his head down. Kylie hugged herself, as if trying to protect herself. I'm sorry, he finally said. She shouldn't have said that. It was just an excuse, Kylie said quietly. She's been looking for a way to break us up for a long time. She's just worried, in her own way. No, Andrew. Kylie shook her head. That's not worry. That's control. She wants to control you, us, our money, our lives. They talked until midnight. Andrew apologized for his mother. Kylie tried to explain why her behavior was unacceptable. They seemed to reach some understanding, but a bitter taste remained. The next morning at breakfast, Kylie asked, Do you really feel like a hanger-on? Andrew was silent for a long time, then confessed. Sometimes. Not because of you, he quickly added. Just, I'm 34 and I have nothing. You have me, Kylie said softly. Isn't that enough? He took her hand. Of course it's enough. You're the best thing that ever happened in my life. But something had broken in their relationship after that scandal. Helen temporarily retreated, but her words, like poisonous seeds, had germinated in their shared life. Kylie began to notice that Andrew was more often lost in thought, looking out the window, that he reluctantly discussed major purchases with her, that when talking about the future, he became uncertain, as if he didn't know if they had a future. And then, an episode occurred that Kylie later called the beginning of the end. Kylie returned from work earlier than usual, suffering from a migraine. She opened the door with her key and quietly entered, hoping not to wake Andrew if he was asleep. But he wasn't asleep. He was sitting in the kitchen with his mother, and they were discussing something animatedly. Kylie froze in the hallway, hearing her name. Kylie will never agree, Andrew was saying. It's her apartment. She paid for it. But you're her husband now, Helen insisted. By law, you're entitled to half, especially if it was bought during the marriage. It was bought before the marriage, Mom, and I'm not going to demand what doesn't belong to me. Nonsense, her mother-in-law scoffed. Marriage is a union where everything is shared. She should understand that if she truly loves you. I won't do it, Andrew said firmly. It's not fair. And the fact that she buys herself Mercedes, while you and I are struggling, is that fair? Hysterical notes entered Helen's voice. I gave you my whole life, Andrew, my whole life, and now, when I need help, you turn your back on your mother for this upstart. Mom, I help you as much as I can, and Kylie doesn't object to that. Handouts, his mother-in-law sobbed. $100 a month is handouts. Meanwhile, my friend Sue lives in a 3-bedroom apartment that her son bought for her because he's a real man, not a doormat. Kylie felt a lump of nausea rise in her throat. She took a step back, then another, quietly trying not to creak the floorboards. She left the apartment, went downstairs, got in her car, and sat there for a long time, staring blankly ahead. Her mother-in-law was planning to take her apartment and was trying to drag Andrew into it. Even though he refused, why was he even having such a conversation? Why didn't he stop it immediately? Why did he let his mother into their home when Kylie wasn't there? She started the engine and drove, not knowing where, just away from the home that had suddenly ceased to feel safe. Kylie drove around the city until dark, thoughts swirling in her head like frightened birds. She turned on the radio but immediately turned it off. The music irritated her. Finally, she stopped near a small cafe by the waterfront, a place where she and Andrew had met in the first months of their relationship. The waitress brought her tea. Kylie cupped the mug in her hands, trying to warm herself. She was shaking, though the cafe was warm. "Calm down," she ordered herself. Andrew refused. He didn't agree to his mother's disgusting plan. But another voice inside argued. Why did he even listen to her? Why did he let her into the house? Why did he cut off that conversation from the very beginning? Her phone vibrated. Andrew. Kylie declined the call. A minute later, a message came. "Where are you? I'm worried. Please call." She put her phone away. She needed to think. And a conversation with her husband now would only complicate things. They both needed time to cool down. When she returned home, it was already midnight. Andrew was waiting in the living room, nervously flipping through TV channels. Seeing her, he jumped up. "Kylie, where have you been? I was going crazy. I needed to think." She walked past him into the bedroom, beginning to take off her jewelry. "We can talk tomorrow. I'm tired." "You're avoiding me." He stopped in the doorway. "What happened?" "Kylie." She slowly turned to him. "I overheard your conversation with your mother about how I should give you half of my apartment." Andrew paled. I refused. You heard that, didn't you?" "I heard." She nodded. "But why were you even having that conversation? Why didn't you just say, 'Mom, that's unacceptable. We're not discussing this'?" He lowered his gaze. "I tried to explain to her that it's not right, that I don't want to do that." "And what do you want, Andrew?" Kylie asked softly. "Are you truly happy with our life, or somewhere deep down? Do you agree with her that I should share everything I earned with my own hard work?" "No." He stepped forward, trying to take her hands, but she pulled away. "Kylie, I love you. I admire you. The fact that you achieved everything on your own is wonderful. Then why do you let your mother destroy us?" Her voice trembled. "Why can't you tell her no?" Andrew sat on the edge of the bed. His shoulders slumped. "It's difficult. After Dad died, she became so anxious, demanding. I'm the only one she has left." "And me?" Kylie asked quietly. "Who am I in this situation?" He looked up. "You're my wife. You're the most important person in my life." "Then why don't I feel that way?" The conversation dragged on until morning. Andrew swore he loved her, that he would never go against her. Kylie wanted to believe him, but the worm of doubt had already burrowed into her heart. She remembered her first marriage, how everything started with small concessions, with the desire to maintain peace, and ended with complete submission and betrayal. In the morning, they parted with heavy hearts. Andrew went to work, promising to talk seriously with his mother that evening. Kylie spent the day at the office in a fog, struggling to concentrate on her tasks. In the evening, the dealer from the car dealership called. "Kylie, good evening. Just a reminder that your Mercedes S-Class has arrived at the dealership. When would be a good time for you to come by to finalize the paperwork?" "Tomorrow," she answered resolutely. "Tomorrow at 6:00 p.m. Andrew returned home late, looking distraught. "I talked to Mom," he said without preamble. She doesn't understand. Says I'm betraying my family for a careerist." "And what did you say?" Kylie looked at him, trying to remain calm. "That you are my family, that I love you, and I'm not going to choose between you." "And how did she react?" Andrew sighed. "She cried. She screamed, said I was an ungrateful son, that she gave me her whole life and I was spitting on her." Kylie nodded silently. Classic manipulation. Her ex-husband did the same thing to her when she wouldn't comply. Tears, accusations, playing on guilt. "I'm going to pick up the car tomorrow," she said, changing the subject. Do you want to come with me? The car. He looked confused. Oh, the Mercedes. Yes, of course. The next day began as usual. Kylie went to work. Andrew worked on his project at home. They agreed to meet at the car dealership at 6:00 p.m. At 5:30, as Kylie was leaving the office, her husband called. I'm sorry. I can't make it. Andrew's voice was tense. Mom's in the hospital. Heart attack. Kylie stopped in the middle of the parking lot. Is she okay? The doctors say it's not a heart attack, but severe stress. He looked tired. But they'll keep her for a couple of days. She's very upset after our conversation yesterday. Kylie closed her eyes. Of course. A heart attack right after an argument with her son. How convenient. Can I help with anything? She asked, trying to sound sincere. No, I'll manage. Go to the dealership. Don't put it off because of this. I'll be home late. At the car dealership, Kylie signed all the papers, paid the remaining amount, and received the keys to her new car. The elegant black Mercedes S-Class gleamed under the showroom lights. The leather interior smelled new. Congratulations on your purchase. The manager smiled, shaking her hand. This car will enhance your status. Key. Status. Kylie smirked to herself. She hadn't bought the car for status, but because she was tired of endless problems with her old car, because she deserved comfort after 3 years without vacations, because she could afford it. But getting behind the wheel of the new car, she unexpectedly felt not joy, but emptiness. Andrew should have been sitting next to her, sharing this moment with her. Instead, he was in the hospital with his mother, who had done everything possible to ruin their relationship. At home, silence awaited her. Kylie tossed her keys on the hall table, undressed, and went into the living room. She poured herself a glass of wine, put on some music, and tried to enjoy her purchase, but her thoughts kept returning to Andrew and his mother. If the heart attack was real, which Kylie doubted, how was Andrew feeling now? Did he feel guilty? Did he think his choice had led his mother to a hospital bed? She put down her glass and dialed her husband's number. The phone was off. Of course. At the hospital, Andrew returned after midnight, looking gaunt and pale. How is she? Kylie asked, meeting him in the hallway. The doctors say it's not a heart attack, but severe stress. He tiredly sank onto the sofa. But they'll keep her for a couple of days. I'm sorry, Kylie said. And it was true. Despite all the problems with her mother-in-law, she didn't wish her ill health. She cried the whole time. Andrew ran a hand over his face, said I was killing her, that she gave me her whole life and I chose a stranger over her. A stranger? Kylie tensed. I'm your wife, Andrew. I know. He sighed. Those are her words, not mine. She doesn't understand, and I don't know how to explain it to her. Maybe you don't need to explain, Kylie said quietly. Maybe you just need to set boundaries. Say, Mom, I love you, but my wife is my family, and I won't let you interfere in our relationship. Andrew was silent, staring at the floor. Then he said quietly, I can't be that harsh with her, especially now. But you can be harsh with me. Kylie felt a wave of bitterness rise within her. I can be forced to endure her endless attacks, her attempts to take what I earned with my own hard work. No one is taking anything. He raised his voice. I told her no after I discussed with her how to cleverly take half the apartment from me. I wasn't discussing, I was explaining why it's wrong. They argued until they were exhausted, each holding their ground. Kylie saw that Andrew was torn between his love for her and his duty to his mother, that he couldn't make a choice because any choice would cause pain, and that made her even sadder. The next day, Andrew left for the hospital right after breakfast. Kylie went to work, for the first time in her new car. Colleagues admired it, congratulated her. She smiled and thanked them. But inside, there was emptiness. In the evening, Andrew called. Mom's being discharged tomorrow. I think I should stay at her place for a few days. She needs help. Kylie clutched the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. Of course. I understand. You don't mind. Does my opinion matter? She couldn't help the bitterness in her voice. Kylie, don't start. His voice sounded tired. She just got out of the hospital. I can't leave her alone. But you can leave me. You're strong. You can handle it. These words hurt more than any accusation. Yes, she was strong. Yes, she could handle it. But was that a reason to use her strength against her? Come pick up your things, she said dryly. I'll be home by 8. Andrew arrived at 9:05 p.m., looking haggard. He packed the essentials clothes, laptop, charger. It won't be long, he said, zipping up his bag. Just until she gets better. Kylie nodded, not looking at him. She already knew this was the beginning of the end, that if he left now, he probably wouldn't come back, because his mother would do everything to keep him close, would manipulate him, appeal to his pity, feign weakness, and he, kind and responsive, unable to say no, would give in again and again. I'll call, he promised, kissing her cheek. We'll get through this together. She didn't answer, just nodded and closed the door behind him. 3 days passed in silence. Andrew called every evening, talked about his mother, asked about her work. The conversations were polite, superficial, as if a wall had grown between them. On the 4th day, Kylie couldn't take it anymore. When are you coming home? The pause on the line was too long. I don't know, he finally replied. Mom's getting better, but she's still weak. She's an adult. Andrew, she can take care of herself. Kylie closed her eyes. You don't understand. She's afraid to be alone after that attack. Of course. Perfect retention tactics. Kylie closed her eyes. You could bring her to our place, she suggested, knowing it was useless. We have enough room. I don't think that's a good idea, he quickly replied. After everything that happened, she needs peace, not tension. So, I'm the source of tension. Kylie felt a wave of anger rise within her. It's me who drove your mother to the hospital with my existence. That's not what I meant, Andrew said tiredly. It's just that you two don't get along. That's a fact. We don't get along because she's trying to control our lives, Kylie interrupted him. Because she wants you to leave me and go back under her wing. That's not true. No, Kylie cut him off. Then why are you still there? Why can't you tell her, Mom, I love you, but my place is with my wife? Andrew was silent, then said quietly, I can't choose between you. But you already chose. Her voice trembled. You chose her the moment you left our home. It's temporary. I'll come back. When? Kylie demanded. In a week, a month, a year. When your mother decides you've paid enough for loving me. Silence. Then quietly. I don't know. Kylie, I really don't know. After that conversation, she didn't sleep all night, tossing and turning in bed, replaying everything that had happened over the past year, how happy she had been with Andrew, how everything changed with his mother's arrival, how their relationship gradually transformed from a partnership into a constant struggle. In the morning, she made a decision. She dialed Andrew's number, but his phone was unavailable. She sent a message, We need to talk. It's important. Come over tonight. A reply came 2 hours later. Can't tonight, Nee. Mom's not feeling well. Maybe tomorrow. Kylie felt something break inside. It will always be tomorrow. It will always be Mom's not feeling well. There will always be a reason not to come home. Come tomorrow at 7, she wrote. It's very important. She was on edge all the next day. The conversation that was supposed to happen that evening could change her life, their life. But the decision had already been made, and she wasn't going to back down. Andrew arrived exactly at 7 Hazara looking exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his face gaunt. How are you? He asked, walking into the living room. Better than you, judging by your looks. Kylie pointed to the sofa. Sit down. We need to talk seriously. He sat down, looking at her intently. I'm listening. Kylie took a deep breath. I can't do this anymore. Andrew, this situation, it's destroying us. Slowly but surely. Kylie, let me finish. She raised her hand. I love you. I really do. But I can't and don't want to be part of this triangle. I don't want to prove to your mother every day that I'm worthy of being your wife. I don't want you to be torn between us. What are you suggesting? He asked quietly. A choice. Kylie simply replied. Either you come home and we set clear boundaries for your mother together, or, she paused, or we break up. Andrew paled. You're giving me an ultimatum. I'm offering a solution, she said firmly. I'm not going to lose another year of my life in this war. I've already been through this in my first marriage, and I swore to myself I wouldn't let anyone manipulate me again. My mother is weak right now. Your mother is expertly manipulating you. Kylie interrupted. She's using her weakness to control you, and she'll do it again and again as long as you let her. Andrew jumped up. You're talking about my mother, about the woman who raised me, who gave me everything, and now demands repayment of a debt. Yes, Kylie chuckled bitterly. At the cost of your happiness, your life, your marriage. You don't understand. No, you don't understand. Kylie also stood up, looking him in the eyes. You don't see what she's doing, how she's turning you against me, how she's trying to destroy everything we have. She just wants what's best for me. No, Andrew. Kylie shook her head. She wants you to belong only to her, for you to have no life, no family, no happiness without her. They stood facing each other, separated not so much by physical space as by a chasm of misunderstanding. Kylie saw the struggle in his eyes, his love for her versus his duty to his mother. I can't make that choice, he finally said. Don't force me. I'm not forcing you, Kylie said quietly. I'm just saying I won't be a part of this situation anymore. Either we're a family and your mother respects our boundaries, or it's better for us to break up now, before we start to hate each other. Andrew lowered his head. Give me time to think. Please. How long? She asked. A day, a week, a month. How long do I have to wait for you to decide what's more important? Our future or your mother's whims? This isn't fair. He looked up at her, his eyes full of pain. You're putting me in an impossible situation. Life isn't fair. Kylie felt tears welling up, but she held them back. I know that better than most, and I don't want to spend my life fighting a battle I can't win. He looked at her for a long time, then quietly said, I can't give up my mother. She's all I've had for most of my life. Kylie nodded, feeling something die inside her. I understand and I respect your choice, but then it's better for us to break up. Are you serious? His voice trembled. You're ready to throw away everything we had. I'm not throwing it away, she replied bitterly. We both are. You, by refusing to protect our marriage. I, by refusing to live in constant tension. They talked for a few more hours, both crying, remembering how happy they had been, how they had planned their future, how they had believed that everything would be different for them than for other couples. But the decision was made. Andrew left closer to midnight, promising to return in a couple of days for his remaining belongings. Kylie stood by the window, watching his figure disappear into the darkness. I made the right choice, she told herself. Better the pain now than a slow agony that lasts a lifetime. 2 days later, they met at the notary's office to finalize their divorce. The procedure was quick. They had no children or shared assets, just signatures on documents, and the marriage that was supposed to last a lifetime officially ceased to exist. I will always love you, Andrew said as they stepped outside, and I'll always regret that I couldn't be the man you needed. And I will always remember what a joy you were in my life, Kylie replied softly. Before we let others destroy what we had, They hugged for the last time. Then she got into her new Mercedes and drove away without looking back. In the rearview mirror, Andrew grew smaller and smaller until he disappeared completely, just as their future had disappeared. That evening, Kylie opened a bottle of wine, called a travel agency, and booked a 2-week tour to the Maldives. She deserved a vacation, deserved a chance to heal her wounds far from everything that reminded her of lost love. Meanwhile, Andrew returned to his parents' rented apartment, where his triumphant mother awaited him with a homemade dinner and plans for his future, a future that no longer had room for a strong, independent woman who dared to challenge her control over her son. The Maldives welcomed Kylie with a turquoise ocean and pristine white sand. She rented an overwater bungalow at a secluded resort, a place where she could drink coffee on the terrace, dangle her feet in the crystal-clear water, and watch butterfly fish dart between the stilts. The first 2 days, she simply slept. It seemed the exhaustion of her entire past life had finally caught up to her, pinning her to the bed, not even allowing her to go out to the ocean. She woke up, ordered room service, gazed at the water through panoramic windows, and fell asleep again. On the 3rd day, Kylie forced herself to go to the beach. She sat in a lounge chair under a palm tree, took out a book, but the lines blurred before her eyes. Her thoughts constantly returned to Andrew, to their last conversation, to the signed papers. Cocktail, a smiling waiter appeared with a tray. "For ladies alone, we offer a complimentary drink from the hotel. Tea." "Why do you assume I'm alone?" Kylie raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Pardon me." He looked flustered. "I've been observing you for 3 days. You don't come out for dinner, always alone. And," he hesitated, "you have the look of someone who has lost something important." Kylie wanted to snap at him, but suddenly felt a lump in her throat. She nodded, unable to utter a word. "My advice, a piña colada." The waiter placed a glass on the table beside her. "It won't solve problems, but it will make the sunset more beautiful." He left, and Kylie was left with her cocktail and the thoughts that wouldn't leave her alone. She had come here to forget, to heal, to start a new life. But how could she start something new if all her thoughts were of the past? She took out her phone, checked her email, a few work emails, messages from the tour operator, a store newsletter. Nothing from Andrew, of course. He had made his choice. "Damn him," Kylie mumbled, sipping her cocktail. "Damn both of them." That evening, for the first time, she went to dinner. She wore her best dress, a white silk one that enhanced her tan, styled her hair, and put on makeup. In the restaurant by the ocean, live music played. Waiters glided between tables, serving exotic dishes. Kylie noticed several single men casting interested glances her way. Normally, this would have flattered her, but now it only caused fatigue. She hadn't flown to the other side of the world for that. Her table was right at the water's edge. A gentle breeze stirred her hair. Muted voices and laughter created a cozy background sound. Kylie ordered a bottle of white wine and oysters. The waiter, not the one who had brought the cocktail, brought her order with a courteous smile. "Enjoy your evening," he said. "And if a lonely lady gets bored, that gentleman over there," he discreetly nodded towards a well-dressed middle-aged man, "asked me to convey that he would be happy to keep you company." "Thank you, but no," Kylie replied firmly. "I'm enjoying my solitude." And it was true. For the first time in a long time, she was completely on her own. No work, no obligations, no mother-in-law demanding attention, no husband torn between duty and love. The wine was excellent, with notes of citrus and green apple. Kylie savored every sip, watching the sun slowly sink into the ocean, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. I wonder what Andrew is doing right now. The thought came unbidden, and Kylie winced. She had promised herself not to think about him, at least not during her vacation. But her imagination was already painting a picture Andrew in his parents' cramped rented apartment, at a table laden with his mother's favorite dishes, Helen bustling around, putting the best pieces on his plate, telling the latest gossip, making plans for the future. And he sits there, smiling politely, nodding in all the right places. But his eyes are empty, tired. Or no, maybe he's happy to be back under his mother's wing. Maybe he's really more comfortable there, without pressure, without having to live up to a successful wife, without constant conflicts between the two women he loves. "Stop it," Kylie told herself sternly. "It doesn't matter." She finished her wine, paid the bill, and walked along the beach towards her bungalow. The ocean lapped at her bare feet, the sand still warm from the day's sun. The tropical night descended on the island, and stars twinkled one by one in the dark sky. At the entrance to her bungalow, Kylie stopped. Instead of going inside, she sat on the steps and stared at the water, shimmering in the moonlight. Something inside her needed to come out: the pain, the bitterness, the disappointment, all the emotions she had suppressed deep inside, pretending everything was fine. She took out her phone, opened her photo album. Here they were with Andrew on their wedding day, happy, in love, confident in the future. Here was their first vacation together, a small cabin in the mountains, a fireplace, wine, no one around. Here was Christmas, they were decorating the tree, laughing, kissing under the mistletoe. And here was Helen's first visit, strained smiles, tension in their eyes. From that moment on, their photos changed: fewer spontaneous selfies, more posed shots at family gatherings, as if joy was slowly draining from their relationship, replaced by duties and compromises. Their last photo together was a week before the final break dinner at a restaurant. Their anniversary. Andrew looked exhausted, Kylie tense. Both smiled for the camera, but their smiles didn't reach their eyes. She ran her finger across the screen, tracing his face. What did she feel now? Anger, resentment, disappointment, or just emptiness where happiness once was? Suddenly, her phone vibrated. Incoming call. The number was blocked, but Kylie recognized the country code. It was from the U.S. "Hello?" She put the phone to her ear, her heart suddenly pounding. "Kylie." A male voice, but not Andrew's. It was Michael, Andrew's friend. "We met at your wedding." "Yes, I remember." She tensed. "Has something happened? I don't know how to say this." He stammered. "Anyway, Andrew's in the hospital. A nervous breakdown. I thought you should know." Kylie felt everything inside her grow cold. "What do you mean? A nervous breakdown? What happened?" "I don't know exactly." Michael's voice sounded concerned. "We were supposed to meet at the bar, but he didn't show up. I called, then went to his parents' place. His mother answered, said Andrew was in the hospital, that he was very bad. And it was all because of you. Because of me." Kylie almost choked with indignation. "I'm just relaying her words." Michael quickly said, "Then I went to the hospital. The doctor said he had nervous exhaustion, prescribed tranquilizers and bed rest. But you know," he lowered his voice, "I don't think it's about the divorce. Or not just about the divorce." "Then what is it about?" Kylie asked softly. "His mother," Michael answered directly. "I was at their place. How should I put it? She's suffocating him with her care, controlling his every move, demanding constant attention. Andrew looks like a trapped animal. He works from home, hardly ever goes out, always on the phone with her. I tried to drag him out for a beer, but she made such a scene." Kylie closed her eyes. She imagined the scene too vividly. Andrew locked within 4 walls with his mother, who had finally gotten what she wanted: complete control over her son. "Why are you calling me?" she asked directly. "We're divorced. His life is no longer my business." "I know." Michael's voice held regret. "It's just that he still loves you. When he gets drunk, he only talks about you, about how he ruined everything, how stupid he was, and now this breakdown. What do you suggest?" Kylie felt a dull irritation rising within her. "Should I drop everything and rush to save a man who chose his mother over me? I'm not suggesting anything, Michael said softly. I just thought you should know. Sorry if I bothered you. He hung up, and Kylie was left sitting, staring into the darkness. Conflicting emotions raged inside her: pity for Andrew, anger at his mother, irritation at Michael for that call that had shattered her fragile balance. What should she feel? Satisfaction that her prediction had come true, pity for her ex-husband, a desire to help, or cold indifference. He had made his choice. Let him live with the consequences. She stood up, went into the bungalow, poured herself some whiskey, and sat on the terrace, staring at the dark water. Thoughts swirled in her head like frightened birds. Part of her wanted to immediately buy a ticket home, rush to the hospital, take Andrew away from there, take him somewhere far from his mother, save him, as she couldn't save their marriage. The other part fiercely resisted. She wasn't obligated to be a savior. She had already tried. She had offered a solution, and he had refused. Chosen his mother, not her. Why should his problems now become her problems? Kylie finished the whiskey, poured another. Alcohol dulled the pain, but didn't bring clarity. She remembered their last conversation, how Andrew had pleaded with her not to force him to choose, how he had said he couldn't abandon his mother. And now that he had what he wanted, a life with his beloved mother, without a careerist wife who thought too much of herself, he was suffering. He was in the hospital with a nervous breakdown. That's not my problem, Kylie stubbornly told herself, finishing her second glass of whiskey. I'm free. I'm starting a new life without him, without his mother, without all this crap. She went into the shower, standing under the hot spray for so long that her skin turned red. Then she lay down in bed, hoping that sleep would bring relief. But sleep wouldn't come. Images haunted her: Andrew in a hospital bed, pale and gaunt, Helen sitting beside his bed, looking like a martyr and a sufferer. See what that woman did to you. Good thing Mom's here. Mom's always here. Mom will never abandon you. At 4 a.m., Kylie gave up. She got up, brewed some tea, and went out onto the terrace. The ocean was calm. Only the gentle lapping of waves occasionally broke the silence. On the horizon, dawn was already breaking, a new day in paradise. She took out her phone, wanting to call Michael to ask for details, but she stopped herself. What would that change? Andrew was an adult. He had made his choice. She couldn't and shouldn't save him from the consequences of that choice. Besides, who said Michael was telling the truth? Maybe Andrew himself had asked him to call. Knowing Kylie was abroad, maybe it was just another manipulation, this time from his side. No, she said resolutely aloud. I will not let myself be dragged back into this swamp. In the morning, she booked an excursion to a neighboring island coral reef. Diving, beach picnic. She spent the whole day out of the bungalow, trying to displace anxious thoughts with physical activity. In the evening, tired but content, she returned to her room, checked her phone, a few work emails, messages from the travel agency about tomorrow's excursion, and a new message from an unknown number. Kylie, it's Helen. We need to talk. It's about Andrew. Please call me back. Kylie threw her phone aside in disgust. Now her mother-in-law had decided to get involved too. What next? A collective letter from all of Andrew's relatives, begging her to return, but curiosity and alarm won out. An hour later, she called back. Hello? Helen's voice sounded unnaturally soft. Kylie, darling, thank you for calling back. I'm not your darling, Kylie replied coldly. What do you want? Andrew is very ill, her mother-in-law said dramatically. The doctors say it's due to stress, because of the divorce. And what do you want from me? Kylie felt anger boiling inside her. He keeps calling for you. Helen's voice trembled. Even in his sleep, it hurts me to hear it. But I think if you came, just for a day, just to visit him. Helen, Kylie said slowly, you got what you wanted. Your son is back with you. I left his life, just as you wanted. And now you're calling me and asking me to come back. I never wanted you two to break up, her mother-in-law exclaimed indignantly. I just wanted Andrew to have his own home, for you two to be equal partners. Don't lie, Kylie cut her off. You wanted to control him, and I was in the way. Now he's completely yours. Enjoy it and solve his problems yourself. How can you be so heartless? Tears came into her mother-in-law's voice. He loves you. He's suffering. And when I suffered from your constant attacks, from your interference in our lives, from your attempts to take what I earned with my own hard work, where was he? Why didn't he protect me? Kylie felt her voice tremble with suppressed emotions. You abandoned him in his time of need, Helen accusingly retorted. You put him in an impossible situation. No, Kylie said firmly. You put him in a situation. You manipulated him, played on his guilt, feigned illnesses to tie him to you. And you succeeded. He chose you. Now live with it. She hung up, feeling her heart pound in her chest, her hands shaking from adrenaline and anger. She threw the phone onto the bed, went out onto the terrace, deeply inhaling the salty air, trying to calm down. That call had stirred up everything she had so painstakingly tried to bury the pain, the resentment, the disappointment. But now, something new was mixed with these emotions: rage, pure, unadulterated rage at the woman who had destroyed her marriage and now had the audacity to ask for help. Kylie spent a sleepless night, replaying the conversation with her mother-in-law over and over again, inventing new arguments, new accusations, angry at herself for letting that call derail her. In the morning, with eyes red from lack of sleep, she canceled the excursion and stayed in the bungalow, aimlessly flipping through TV channels, trying to read, even starting to draft a letter to Andrew, a long, angry letter full of accusations, but she didn't send it. Instead, she ordered a bottle of wine, sat on the terrace, and watched the sun slowly move across the sky. Her thoughts gradually calmed, turning from a turbulent stream into a quiet current. What did she feel for Andrew now? Yes. Somewhere deep down, she still loved him, but that love was buried under layers of disappointment, resentment, anger, pity. Perhaps he had turned out to be weaker than she thought, unable to stand up to his mother, unable to protect their relationship. Responsibility, no. She had done everything she could, offered a solution, gave a choice. He chose not her. Now, the consequences of that choice were his problem, not hers. In the evening, a new message arrived, this time from Michael. Andrew has been transferred to the psychiatric ward. I just left there. He asked me to tell you he's sorry and that he loves you. Kylie stared at her phone screen for a long time, then resolutely dialed the airline's number. I'd like to change the date of my return flight, she told the operator. Not in a week, but as soon as possible. The nearest flight was in 2 days. She booked a seat, hung up, and sat for a long time, looking at the ocean. The decision had been made, but it wasn't the decision Helen and Michael were waiting for. Kylie wasn't going to rush to the hospital to her ex-husband. She wasn't going to save him from his mother or from himself. She was returning home to close this chapter of her life for good and start a new one. 2 days flew by unnoticed. She swam in the ocean, sunbathed, drank cocktails by the pool, flirted with the diving instructor, a young American with a charming smile. She lived in the present moment, not allowing thoughts of the past or future to cloud the last days of her vacation. The phone rang several times. Helen, Michael, even someone from the hospital. She didn't answer. Whatever happened to Andrew, it was no longer her concern. She had made her choice. He had made his. Now everyone had to live with the consequences. On the plane, looking out the window at the receding island, Kylie felt a strange calmness, as if along with that paradise, she was leaving behind all her doubts, all her pain, all her disappointment. I deserve happiness, she told herself, and I will find it. Without Andrew, without all that baggage from the past. Damn. At home, an empty apartment greeted her. She turned on the light, looked around. Nothing reminded her of her ex-husband's presence. All his belongings had been put away long ago. Photos taken down from the walls. Personal items packed in boxes and sent to his parents even before she left. Kylie unpacked her suitcase, took a shower, brewed some tea, and sat in the living room, looking out the window at the night city. Tomorrow, a new day would begin, a new life, without looking back at the past. Her phone vibrated, a message from an unknown number. It was the number of the psychiatric ward. Your ex-husband asked me to tell you he's gotten worse. Doctors say a visit from you might help him. Please come. Kylie deleted the message without replying. Then she blocked Helen's and Michael's numbers. She poured herself some wine, put on her favorite music, and began to make a to-do list for tomorrow. The first item was a meeting with the realtor, selling the apartment. She had decided to move, to start fresh in a new place, without memories, without ghosts of the past, perhaps even in another city or country. After all, she had always known how to rebuild her life. After her first divorce, she managed. She would manage now, too. In the morning, after coffee, she drove to the office. Colleagues greeted her with enthusiasm, tanned, rested, with new energy. No one knew about the drama that had unfolded during her absence, and she wasn't going to tell anyone. After work, she met with the realtor, a young woman with a sharp eye and a businesslike grip. Excellent apartment, she assessed after inspecting the premises. In this neighborhood, it'll sell in a week, 2 at most. And where are you moving yourself? Haven't decided yet, Kylie answered honestly. Possibly to another city or even country. Global changes, the realtor asked with an understanding smile. The most global, Kylie nodded. That evening, while checking her email, she stumbled upon a letter from the HR director of a large international company. They offered her a position in Singapore with a promotion, relocation, and a salary 1.5 times her current one. A sign of destiny, Kylie thought, studying the offer. Or just a coincidence. She replied that she was interested and available for an interview. Then she stood by the window for a long time, looking at the night city, the city where she had suffered and been happy, the city that would soon be a thing of the past. A week later, her apartment was sold to a young couple expecting their first child. A week after that, she had her interview and received an official job offer in Singapore. And a month later, she sat on a plane, watching the earth she had once called home recede into the distance.